So, hello. I think audio is open. Yeah, everybody should hear me. So, welcome. I see on the chat box a lot of friends. Hello. And it's nice that you've been here by the live seminar today. I miss a girl here which do a refreshment. Believe me, this small room here, 16 square meters, lamps are on, and by this nice weather, sitting here. So better we do it outside, whatever. But I need the studio here. Okay, today seminar is talking about live streaming for the 800 series, or actually, let's talk a little bit more as an add-on. Because, you know, to do this presentation on the webinar, it's rather difficult. So this is normally something which I have to show something in reality, do the streaming online, you see how the signal goes and it's come back, whatever. So it's more a theoretical seminar today. Well, I expect some basic, how you do a web connection, how you do a GSM connection. If you missed this part, please go to the website later on to the download section, and I give you a shortly overview here on the website. So maybe later on, and for somebody who is new, there is a DOC download area. Click on this, which you see here. Go to click download webinars, and you find a folder here at the end. Click these webinars, and you see all the webinars which already will be done, except the last two ones. I'm not ready to prepare the files, and also this one will be on this site next week. So if you look next week, I guess on Tuesday or Wednesday latest, these last two seminars will be here as webinar videos. And when you click to the webinar videos, you go ahead, you find the web webinars for the 600 series already, and there are English and German versions, and there are already some informations how to do the network setup, how to do the streaming, even the streaming, because I did that for the 650 already. So I don't want to repeat all this stuff, so you can download these videos and you get all the basics, because the setup procedure is from the software side and from the OSD side on the camcorder is exactly the same on the 800. So you don't have to learn something else on the 800, so I will only explain what will be the difference. Furthermore, on this site, I add some hints for you. First of all, here there is a folder called Live Streaming Guide for the 8XO series. You can use that also for the 650. This is a guide which has a reference that you know how to do the setup. It's just a reminder which parameter you have to set for UDP control, TCP control, for RTSP, or for the 60 protocol. This is just one thing. You can put it on your smartphone, you have it in your pocket and say, oh, what I have to input in this area. So it's just a quickly nice reminder for you. Anymore, you find more information about streaming. As I mentioned to you, there's also complex live streaming setup guide how to do. Just as a reminder, you can download all these DOCs. I think it's very helpful because really from the praxis and not focusing some sales stuff or whatever. It's a real field operation. So that's it for the entry, and let's go a little bit back to the main page here. Okay, let me close that quickly. Move my video away. So, and then now let's start on the 800 series. First of all, let's look a little bit to the adapters. I like to make a quick switch to my desk here. And as usual, I always explain about which kind of connector you use. Let's have a short repeat of that. This is a GSM adapter, and you on the 800 series, the adapter, the USB host is right here. So you can connect this adapter here. Just hooked it up, and that's it. If somebody has concerns, maybe that's too close to your brain or whatever, you can extend this and make a nice holder here, because there are two holes. You can make that by yourself, a customer can make by yourself, put it somewhere else, just with the extension cable, so don't worry about it. And another option is to use a Cat6 adapter. You know that all these adapters are dedicated adapters because we need to have driver that, and the actual list is equal to the 650. So in the download area there is also a list of GSM support, and there's also a list of the Wi-Fi and cable dongles. This is you find on the 650, but it's absolutely identical to the 800. Regarding Wi-Fi dongles, this is an example. This is a small one, and here is a big one. This is actually, I must say, my favorite one is the Asus here. This is a USB N53. Why this is my favorite? There's a simple reason. This is, first of all, is a larger one, which gives you better transmission and receiving rate. And the other one, it supports also 5G. So especially in you going to events or some event place, well, if nobody is there, then Wi-Fi works very fine. But if you, for example, you as a dealer have an event, you go to our exhibition hall, and normally the 2.5 gigahertz area is totally crowded. And sometimes it's the network is so overload that you even you hooked it up, and even you with your smartphone here at just some centimeters, you will not work because all channel overlaps you have. So therefore you can switch to a 5 gigahertz, and when you do that and you have the experience, you will see at the moment not everybody knows this, and the 5 gigahertz is not so crowded, and it still works in the exhibition area. The only issue is higher frequency range limits you a little bit in the distance. So for example, if you have in the free air with a 2.4 gigahertz without any amplifier or something else, maybe a possible choice to use the remote control or the streaming up to 200, 300 meters. In the 5G maybe is 50, 60 meters less depending on the area. But again, it's not so crowded, so I prefer when you do exhibition or whatever, take an access point which allows you to support also 5 gig. You actually can use both Wi-Fi access points or frequency range. Well, let's have a look to the menu option a little bit. And therefore, I like to go to the image and give you here our, let's do the dissolve, let's make a normal screen, okay, and let's go to the external signal. So I make a superimpose here for my image so you can see me, and I can explain you here into the screen for the setup of the camera. So actually what you're seeing here is the camera menu. Let's press the menu option, and let me give a little bit more contrast to that. So like this, I hope you can see everything. So you have all the function, as you know, it's the same as on the 650. And we concentrate today not on the special setups that was last week. Let's go to the live streaming difference. So let's go down for the system menu, and then we go down to the networking, and let's go to the settings, and we go to the live streaming. And it's our part for today in theoretical terms, so it will be actually a quite short seminar today. Well, this is the first one, is live streaming on off, as some people already maybe know, but it's not needed to switch that on here, on and off. You see it's blanked out because I have not set up any dongle right now to the camcorder, so not a physical connection to the web. That will be only white or not grayed off when there is real physical connection. As long as there's a problem with the connection, no connection, adapter is missing, connection is missing, you cannot start live streaming. But as you know, there is a more comfortable way to start the live streaming when you use our switch settings, user switch settings. You can nicely set up this function on one of the user buttons and start it, stop. Well, do the resolutions. Well, I have only one limitation here to show you everything, because my whole system here in the studio running at 60 Hz, not 50. So don't worry, if you switch to 50, you have all the other frequency range and resolution frequency. So, for example, in the 60 Hz with the streaming here in the momentary setup, my maximum streaming rate goes to 1280. But in 50 Hz, we go up to 1080i, of course, that you already know. We have 1080i, 720p, 480, also resolution, kind of resolutions. So, for example, I change it now. When I change that resolution, the camera needs to be reboot, and the camera comes back, and then the settings change. That you always have to keep in mind when you're changing the resolution. The camera needs to reboot. That means also if you establish a connection, you must sure after these settings that your connection is still valid. Okay. For example, 1080i, we have here now 30p set up with 1.5 megabit, 3 megabit, 5 megabit. In case of 1080i, we can go up to 8 megabit streaming. This is the same as on the 650 already. What is actually new for this kind of streaming rate is the lower part. And the lower part, we make a streaming rate now from 200 kilobit. Let me show you this. When I go back to live stream and push a little bit too quick. Again, I have to change that. And let's go to SD resolution. Because the 200 kilobit has two modes for streaming. 200 kilobits, why you say 200 kilobit is so lousy speed. So what kind of image could be out? Well, the image is still good enough. In case the frame rate is dropped to about 10 frames, or the SD resolution is not SD resolution anymore, so you're setting up to 480 pixels. But keep in mind, you can use that with a satellite telephone and make a connection. And the satellite telephone offers you maximum 254 kilobit streaming capability when you're somewhere in the desert and use a satellite telephone as an internet connection device. Well, 250 kilobit is always the maximum rate, but this is never true, as you know. So therefore we need some headroom. So the camera starts actually streaming from 200 kilobit. And it keeps, of course, more focus to the audio, because that is very important that you still have a good audio in case of the streaming process. Because if there is an image distortion, everybody can understand when you are in a desert, whatever, Afghanistan or whatever, Egypt or whatever happens in the crazy areas, whatever, then you use that. Everybody can understand that there maybe is a broken video line, but the audio still should be in acceptable quality. Well, okay, let's go back into the system menu here and go to the settings, live stream settings. So, and you can see here we have now all the bit rates. In the case of SD, we start 200 kilobit, 300 kilobit, 800 kilobit, 1.5 megabit, 3 megabit, 5 megabit for the SD quality streaming. Well, there's a choice to go to 480, of course, then even you have a better connection because size gets smaller, pixel size gets smaller, image gets improved. For a breaking news somewhere from the desert, the resolution is still good enough. And this is typical, for example, if you see some NTV, CNN news or whatever, that's a kind of a typical image qualities. Well, what else is new? What else is new is we add some new protocols. And first of all, the TS and UDP control. So you go to your protocol setup, which is, for example, UDP as MPEG-2 stream, or as TCP protocol, or what is new is RTSP or the 6E protocol. Well, there is some basic to understand. Maybe you missed the RTMP, the real-time messaging protocol. The RTMP is not possible in the moment to implement, but believe us, we're working on this, but we need more time to do that. It's more complex for the RTMP. This RTMP request always we have from customer because they like to do direct streaming from the camcorder to the video hosting area, to the CDN networks. But the most CDN networks support like MPEG-, HTTP Live, or this RTMP. RTMP is actually Adobe Live Protocol. However, we cannot do that in the moment. So if you want to stream to a CDN, which I do, is actually the same as with the seminar here. It's normally a negotiation with your CDN provider that can normally open a UDP protocol, and you can start streaming to the CDN network. Well, maybe some of them don't want it. There is another way to do that. You can use the 6E protocol instead. Of course, that has some cost because 6E is very dedicated. I'm coming in a few seconds to this 6E protocol. But first of all, let's look what this different kind of stream protocols will do. First of all, the UDP and the TCP protocol are push service. That means you have a point-to-point connection, not multicast in no way, so it's only point-to-point connection from the camcorder directly to the dedicated endpoint. The dedicated endpoint could be a piece of software like VLC player, and you stream from the camcorder to a PC over the cloud, over direct. That doesn't matter. The only way is to stream from one IP address to the next IP. That means your decoder, if it's software-based or hardware-based, like a TerraTech decoder, High Vision decoder, or any decoder you use, all of them can normally support UDP protocol in the case of point-to-point. The only issue is that the endpoint is visible to the cloud. As long as you're not working in a local network, the endpoint must be visible or reachable from the outside. So you have to talk with your IT guys to open the right protocol and make a port forwarding from your official IP address to a local IP address with the right port. That's the only issue. The RTSP works exactly opposite way. RTSP is a pull. So I take the signal from the camcorder. That means to do that, the decoder could be also any decoder or a software decoder, even VLC can do that. But in this case, you need to know the IP address of the camera. And here comes the most critical point for this RTSP streaming. Because as long you make a connection, like say here by a cable, or you take a Wi-Fi dongle and you're still working in your local own network, you have an official IP address. And then you can track from the decoder or from the VLC the address of the camcorder. In Europe, when you're using a GSM dongle, that's more difficult because that's depending on the provider. Some can support that, but they want to have additional money for this. If you make a connection with the GSM modem, you will get an IP address, and you can see the IP address in the camcorder, which I'll show you later where you can find this. But you see the IP address, but this IP address is not, let's say, an official IP address. You cannot reach that from outside. The camcorder gets an IP address, but it's hidden from somewhere else to reach the hardware. That's depending on the provider. Some providers say, okay, if you have a 3G network, sometimes it's official IP address so you can reach the camcorder, which is very nicely, because then you have also the option not only to pick up a stream, it is also possible to control the camcorder from somewhere else. So for the camcorder can be stay wherever, as long he gets an official IP address, and you can do control from your office or from your station. You can control the camera. You know that we have a full RCU controller inside the camcorder. Anyhow, but this is not the reality here in Europe. The reality is that normally at the moment, the most providers not supporting an official IP address. Some you can negotiate, you have to talk with them, can I get an official IP address, you must pay extra. And by the way, there's another issue regarding 3G or 4G. If you take a regular account, that you get a usually internet account. So you have also to ask, and maybe need also some extra payment, sometimes not. And again, it's depending on the provider. If you say you use that for video streaming, the provider can set up a priority streaming in your contract which you have. So normally if you have an internet connection, even you say I have here theoretical 8 megabit or 15 megabit or 100 megabit or 2 kilobit uploads, whatever, but the reality is something else. As long they're not making a mark and say, yeah, well, this connection has a kind of priority, this is also a negotiation point with the provider. So keep that in mind. Even you make a network test, it looks good, but your stream maybe not really followed through because you are registered as a normal user. So normally if you ring up to their service and say, hey, I try, and you say I have 2 megabit upload, whatever, but it's not happened, I do video streaming, sometimes they're friendly and they say, well, okay, let me check, and then normally they have a choice in the software setup and say, hey, come on, let's get a little bit more priority, and then you will see everything runs through. So that's some hints you have to take care. Well, this is the protocol. What we have is an UDP as a push service to a dedicated address, TCP also a push service, RTSP is a pull service. You pull the signal from the camcorder which need the IP address. Now ZigZee. Well, we have the ZigZee here down. The ZigZee is a protocol. The ZigZee is a dedicated protocol by the company ZigZee. The protocol has a big advantage against the other protocols because this protocol makes an analysis of your network and check what is the real bandwidth, what it can do, and based on this they do a forwarded error correction. So they measurement the bandwidth, that tells the camera back, we have this kind of delay, and the package will be waiting until everything is complete. Well, the delay gets a little bit up. A typical 60 to 60 device delay is about 2 seconds, from another 2 seconds. It's depending on the network quality. So we have two setups in that 60 protocol, which is called low and medium. Low means 2 seconds delay, and medium means about 5 seconds delay. But there is a big advantage. So if you have all the other protocols like RTMP, like UDP, like RTSP, or any other HTTP live, etc., if you have a network distortion from around about 1% or less, you're getting drop noise. Already you get package lost and the signal gets lost. With the 60 protocol, during this error correction, and depending on your low settings or your high settings, you can go up to 30% package loss. That means with any other streaming solution, based on this, with a single connection, you will have no image anymore, but with 60 still you have a running image. And this is the benefit on the 60. Well, to do this 60, it's not only the protocol, you need that. The benefit for you is you don't have to pay a license for the camcorder because it's already built in. You have to pay, of course, for the cloud service, which is depending on your demand. For example, if you are a broadcast station, then of course you want to have unlimited input, unlimited outputs. You have to have a contract that is run over 2 years, and every year there is some kind of fee which you have to pay for that. But believe me, that cost is much lower than a normal satellite uplink, whatever. Another choice is for the customers who wants to use the 60 protocol and wants to use it only for one event, for example, and maybe in 3 months one time. There is also an option that's called 60 ramp. And 60 ramp, you can order that on demand just by your credit card. And at 60 ramp, you must be a member of the Amazon marketplace. And even if you input there 60 ramp, you get all the follow-ups, and it's a quite cheap streaming solution. So you can, for example, $70–80, you can do an event screening from 60 with the error protocol to a dedicated endpoint. But keep in mind, it's a conversion from one point to the other one. So if you want to do an event and you want to broadcast that to the internet for, let's say, 1,000 users, 2,000 users, whatever, you need a CDN provider. Because the endpoints at the streaming is always different kind of streaming format. Some devices need HTTP live, other one MPEG-dash. You have different system like Android system or Apple system, etc. So they make also a remixing of the signal and match the signal to your device. This is an automatically process which the CDN service will do. But again, we're coming back to the CDN. The most CDN supplier asks you for the RTMP stream. Well, if you use the 60 or the 60 RAM, it's no problem. You go with the 60 protocol to the 60 broadcaster or the 60 RAM, and there you have a setup. You can manage this and say, well, my outgoing, it's RTMP stream with all the logins for the security, etc. what you have. So you use the 60 protocol as a bridge to go to the CDN, and RTMP is no problem at all. Well, what is the benefit? Of course, you can say I have double payment. I have one payment for that streaming and I have one payment for the CDN back. but guys, frankly speaking, CDN payment is based on how much user you have and how long you stream. You need that service anyway. It doesn't matter. If you're going directly with the camcorder to a CDN network, and you will have a cost if you use that for 10,000 people, whatever, there is some cost anyway to pay. And then the small cost just to make the bridge from the camcorder to 60 and from there to the next point. Well, means nothing because you have the big benefit to use the 60 error protocol, and you can be sure that you have a much better signal at the endpoint to your web as you have without the 60 protocol. Well, when we look into the inside of the camcorder, let me quickly switch again to that external signal. I see. Okay. So, okay. So let's have a look to the menu option, and then let's go quickly to the setup points on the camera point. And after that, I'd like to have a small talk because one of the friends which are listening here has a request for Wi-Fi streaming, and I want to pick up that quickly also. So let's go to the setting. Let's have a small look to the UDP setting. Well, this is the UDP protocol here, and what we have to do on the UDP settings. Well, first of all, you can see you have the destination address. That could be a real host name here, or it could be IP address, and of course a destination port, which is depending on your endpoint, on your hardware, on your network. So for the UDP streaming, it's quite easy to set up. Just the IP address of the endpoint and the destination port. Well, if there is no port exists, you can design by your own, and keep in mind that you use the right network setting like firewall or port forwarding on your access point. That must be followed up, otherwise you will have no connection. So, hey guys, sorry, that's my fault. I killed my power from the camcorder. That should not happen here. So give me. So it's too warm here, so I have my power connection here under the table. Okay, let's go. Again, so that's live, you know, that's not recorded. So again to the live streaming. Oops, live streaming, here we are. So next one is the RTSP streaming. When we go to the RTSP streaming, I mentioned to you that's pulling the signal. So we need to know the IP address of the camcorder, but for our setup, it's only for a reason you have to give a password, which could be any name which you decide. That you have to input to follow up. There's no other setting needed. Only for example, if you use VLC, and keep in mind I make this streaming handbook, you can see what you have to input on the VLC. All demos are implemented there. And next point is 60 settings. 60 setting has a big benefit for streaming. First of all, it has a general address, which could be anything. For example, my stream at 60. To do this, again, you have to have a 60 cloud, GVC 60 cloud solution. So you have to do this kind of account. This is a real contract, and this is mostly interesting for the broadcasters. You have unlimited input, unlimited output. It's only limited by your bandwidth. And the funny thing is, you don't need to input IP addresses. It's just a normal web address, like here, for example, my stream something. Only the port address is fixed for 60 broadcasters, typical 2088, and you can input a stream ID. This is anything what you like to do. It's based on your setup on the cloud. So when I set up the cloud, I support the stream which called my stream. Then I have to input here the name my stream here on this area, my stream. A password is also possible to set for security reasons. You can use any password settings, and at the end you can set up the latency, low or middle range latency. Low means about 2 seconds, and middle range means about 5 seconds delay from one 60 point to another 60 point. Well, that's all for the settings. Actually, it's quite easy. In the settings in the camcorder, of course, your network infrastructure, port setting, firewall, all this have to be clear. Let's let's look a little bit quickly when you have a connection where you can find your settings. Let me view the give you the image of the camera here, and let me zoom that quickly up for you. So, there is a bottom. Okay, here we are. Let's go a little closer. Okay, here we are. So to find out in the simplest way when you have a network connection is you press this bottom here, which is called status bottom. If you press that, do me this with the reality here with the screen. Let me shoot the screen for you instead to use the inbound settings. If I press the status button, you get the screen information here. Okay, this. And here is a good example. So we have no connection right now. Okay. Okay, here we are. So if you press the status button below, and you can use the cursor key in front of the camcorder, you can select all status information on the camcorder. Anyway, it's very helpful. You can easily see where your audio connection is going and your audio settings are going. Some of the customers never recognize which kind of setup they have. By simply pressing the status button, use the cursor key left, right, you can see a quick overview of your camera settings. It's very helpful, and even the network signal. So if we make a connection, we hook up a connection, for example cellular, we get an information, is that 3G or 4G connection, which carrier is it, like for example here in Germany Telekom or Vodafone, and also depending on the network provider we get a signal control. That means we can say there's a level 6, level 5 connection. Normally for a GSM connection you should take care that the level minimum is 5 or 6. The IP address which you get from your provider, and if you do already live streaming, you get the status of the live streaming on and off and which kind of protocol you use. So it's very nicely, very easy to find your settings. In case of a point-to-point connection, which I explained in the other video on the 650, it's also easy to see which kind of password phrase you use, because in the case of point-to-point, the camcorder gives you automatically security phrase which you have to input in your smartphone or cellular tablet or whatever you use as a control device. Well, that's just a quick hint for that thing. Well, there was one customer, let's switch to another point, is I have one customer asking, can we do streaming, Wi-Fi streaming with more cameras into a network? Well, if I use the camcorder in a local network, which is actually quite nicely, because I have also the choice to use one computer and I can control all cameras by the remote. So I can open the RCU and you have, for example, one computer and you use a high resolution screen, like a full HD screen. And in case of 3 cameras, for example, you can open the browser three times and simply change the IP address of the camcorder, and for each camera you will have an RCU control, as you regularly know. But how to do that in a network setup? I have prepared just a simple screen here. Let me open this. And this is a typical example. So which you see here on this area. This is a typical setup. We have the camcorder here using a Wi-Fi adapter. And keep in mind, there is one thing. This is a small one. Keep in mind, this is something which I have here in my hand, the small one. I prefer normally to use a bigger one because this has the option really to have better receiving option and better transmission option. Well, if you use more than one camera, you never normally make just a point-to-point connection. So you're going in, you create simply an own network. And if you do that on case of events, you should have to take care that you make your access point here by a router or still only access point as your own device and not use something else, because it's necessary, because you create a high traffic with 3 cameras and not to get disturbance from any other device. I give you an example. There's a lot of people using Dropbox, for example, on their PC. But Dropbox, if the Dropbox running in the background, it drops down your network speed dramatically because it's always looking and charging and whatever. So as long you do network operations, streaming or remote control with the camcorders, whatever, make sure that you not have too much running background programs. Yeah. So especially I mentioned Dropbox. I have the same experience here. If Dropbox is running in the background, it drops your performance dramatically. Also, if you build your own network, keep in mind the network is not intelligent. The bit rates which the Wi-Fi network can support is rely on the lowest part of the network. So if you have an old device in which use only 10 megabit, your whole network drops down. So keep in mind that you really control your own network. And doing an event, which I mentioned in the beginning, it could be crowdy. Spend a little bit more money. Instead of 40 euros, spend 100 euro and do a better router here. And keep in mind that the router should have external antenna option. Depending, for example, if you go on an exhibition, these two aerial system needs to be in some distance away. If they are too close, then it doesn't work well. So you have to split them. And if you have external area support, you can have better aerial system, which gives you 8 or 12 dB more power range. So keep in mind, if you do such an event, use some external aerial system. And spend the money for that router a little bit more. Especially you have a dual band access point, which gives you 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So you prepare for everything. So you can run 2.4 gigahertz and see if it's working very well, or you can run 5 gigahertz if you have a crowded network system. The people who have Android smartphone, and there is a nice software called Wi-Fi Analyzer. So this is cost-free. But this Wi-Fi Analyzer gives you very nicely overview how much networks you have and which channels they are using. So normally if you buy a router, it works on auto channel settings, which works in most cases. But it's better to have a control on the channel. Use the Wi-Fi network analyzer. You can see what Wi-Fi networks are around you and go some distance 2 channel up or 2 channel down if that is possible. Of course, an exhibition that could be a real problem. But on the 5G, it's much better. Yeah. Keep some in mind, there is a lot of Apple user, but not all Apple phones support 5 gigahertz. Keep that in mind. So maybe you need another device, or you take your PC for that one. So coming back to the streaming. When we do the live streaming, you should have only one bottleneck. When I say bottleneck, then of course you can imagine that a Wi-Fi connection needs more protocol issues instead of a fixed cable connection. So this you create a bottleneck, which is actually not a big problem as long you're not using the endpoint. For example, here in this example is a TeraTech decoder. If there is a Cube 355, for example, which has also network capability, but this will be a bad decision. You go Wi-Fi from the camcorder to the access point by Wi-Fi, and it broadcasts back by Wi-Fi to the Cube. That's create a second bottleneck, and then you drop down your network speed dramatically. Keep in mind you have 3 devices running, 3 cameras, 3 decoders, means 6 network devices, Wi-Fi devices, and that is you must round your network speed dramatically. So this is something which I never should do, and I never worked like this. But it works as long you take one device or these 3 camera as a streaming device, but the decoder side, if it is a hardware decoder like the TeraTech, or you use a PC with VLC or something like that, that should be a cable connection from the access point to the network adapter. I hope that helps you for the settings. To do the starting up with network settings and with streaming settings, I always start with a low resolution startup. That means SD resolution 800 kilobit. This is normally my startup when I start to check a network on the streaming capability. I know that the most people say, I want to have progressive 720p in the start, and they're getting problem, the connection is not well done. So then you're starting to search problems where maybe it's only bandwidth problem. But that's why it's better to start with low streaming, and the best is, for my experience, using SD 800 kilobit. Startup, that works in more than 98% it works. And from there on, you see, okay, image is working, stabilized, okay, and then you can increase speed. You can, for say, using ST 1.5 megabit, ST 3 megabit or 5 megabit, you can test out what your network capability is. Next step is then to go higher to 1280 with 1.5 megabit or 2.5 megabit, etc. So that's the right way to doing this process and doing this setup. It's a kind of experience. One hint for everybody. Streaming sounds well. The network infrastructure must be there, that's for sure. If you have planned to use 3G or 4G, or you have planned to use Wi-Fi in a network, where is official place, where a huge kind of people. When you went to the place, you can do a test, but there are no people, then normally everything works fine. But there's a lot of people, then the whole network crashed. And that's a system, for example, especially providers doing this, for example, football stadium, whatever. Everybody's coming with the phones or on the exhibition, and then you still have the same hardware for the signal providing, but they drop down the bandwidth, a huge kind of bandwidth drop. So this is a little bit carefully. Streaming sounds good, live streaming works well, but keep in mind, in case you have bigger events, be careful. Even connection, if you have multi-connections, whatever, could be also risky. So you have a little bit more change, but cost more. For example, if you have a body box, whatever, it costs you 15,000 euro hardware cost, plus the contracts for each device. For example, if you have 6-8 devices, you must pay the contracts for this for all these devices. You need to endpoint device another 10,000 euro. Of course, costs a lot more. It gives you more security and more security for the signal, but it's depending on the project and how much you should invest. Okay, there was a question about SD from Dejan. The streaming maximum rate is 5 megabits. And SD you can start from 200 kilobit instead of 300 kilobit, 800 kilobit, 1.5 kilobit, 3 megabit and 5 megabit. That's the maximum rate for the SD signal. In case of 720p, we can go up to 5 megabits, starting from 1.5, 3 megabit and 5 megabit. In the case of 1080i, you can go up to 8 megabits. Okay, there was a question from Nick. Hello, Nick. Well, Nick, the Wi-Fi dongle you mentioned. So what my preferred one, which I have here, it's Asus. And let me quickly jump in. This is the, I will show you that one. This is the Asus N53. I hope you can see that. Let me try if I can focus that. Okay, here we go. It's written in gray. I'm not sure if you can read it. It's up to here. It's the Asus USB N53. That's actually my favorite one. Other question about speed test. Yeah, speed test. If you follow the website, I can show you that actually here on the website. If you open Google and you type in if you simply type in Ookla, so you can see it here on the web. Nick, I hope you're still online. Called Ookla, and that opened me with that for you here, for example. If you open that, as a typical stream window, takes the time to loading, of course, some advertisement, whatever. And this you get also from this company Ookla as an app for Android. I think it's also for Apple there. So you can do a test like this. Then it starts to search the nearest server in your area, and it then makes a speed test. So you can see here now it's doing the upload speed. And what I mentioned to you is more important to see what's going on here, if you can see that on the web, instead of the volumeter. You know, the volumeter shows here high level up to 27 meg upload, but it's important how flat this is. And as you see, this is my upload speed here right now, so you can see I have a good line. So this is the important point for that value. If you have a lot of breaks in, so you have to judge, maybe you cannot use the full bandwidth. But this is a very nice tool. I hope that answers your question. And the other one is the web analyzer. That is, you go to Android web shop, and even I know that's also for Apple there. It's called really Analyzer. So, and then you can see your Wi-Fi area. And also I can show this you actually. Let me do this for you. Show you this quickly, this app by using that camera. Here's my phone. Okay, let me do that. So I have all my network tools here as actually another very nicely tool. This is the called Wi-Fi analyzer. This is the typical sign here, Wi-Fi analyzer. And I press this, and you immediately will see when it's getting on, you see you get a bar graph here. And of course this is now blue. You can see my networks here. There is only a few networks here in our office. So we are in a really full metal covered area. So normally if you're going to a web-based system, you see all the Wi-Fi networks coming up. And it's very easy with that tool. For example, this phone here, the Samsung phone, has the option to 5 gigahertz, so we can mention also the 5 gigahertz. That has more screens, of course. You can see the level of the signals is a dependent one. You can see how much power the networks will have in your area. So that's very helpfully when you do a setup. This is the Wi-Fi analyzer. Another very good, helpfully program if you're going with your phone in the network. This is a program here that calls Fing. If you open the Fing, you can do, that's a free of charge one. So you can judge your network, and you can update it here, and you can see all connection in your network, and can see what kind of ports there is open, what kind of FTP support, etc. that you have. Is also quite good to have a network analyzer. That's the tool which is very helpful to have that on a tablet or a smartphone. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the day, enjoy the sun, have fun at the afternoon, take care, and God bless you. Bye bye.